Hi, everybody, and welcome to another edition of Trustaff Takeover. So, if you've never seen before, this is our first one of 2019. We're super excited. We ask somebody from our team to take over all our social media channels. They get to tell us about them. We learn, a little bit more about their jobs. And normally, this is something reserved for recruiters. But this week, you've already gotten to know this is Katie's takeover, and Katie is not a recruiter. Katie is our clinical liaison.
Yeah.
So today we're going to get to go live. Make sure you send us questions as you're joining us. Say hi. If you have any questions for Katie, shout them out. And we'll get to know a little bit more about you.
Yes, it's been great getting to know everybody this week as well.
So you have a background in nursing.
I do. Yeah, I've been a nurse since 2003. I've been in healthcare longer than that, actually, since 1996. So I'll just date myself right here. I was a pharmacy tech and a CNA and EMT, and also a dialysis tech before I became a nurse. And that was all during college, just trying to figure out what I wanted to do. Eventually, I did become a nurse and specialized in critical care, specifically ICU. And ICU was my passion and my love, my whole career, it still is, and I specifically love transplant and CV ICU.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So, and your whole family has a history in healthcare, right?
For a lot of us do, yeah. Actually, yes, a lot of us do, especially my generation of my brother, and my brother's a physician here in town at University of Cincinnati, and a lot of my cousins actually are all in various parts of healthcare. A lot of us became nurses, actually, and so it makes for interesting discussion at the holidays.
You get around the dinner table.
And everybody debates, yep.
So you are a clinical liaison, as we mentioned. Tell us a little bit about what a clinical liaison does.
Right. So so basically what I do is I'm an advocate here and kind of a middleman. And what I mean by that is I advocate for our facilities and for our nurses. Whenever we get an issue or a complaint, whether it comes from the nurses or it comes from the facility, I find out more information. And then I talk to the other party, try and figure out the best course of action and what we can do to solve the problem. My job is really to try and keep people working as much as possible. So it's a very interesting job. I never know which way my day is going to go. You'd be surprised what you hear and some of the issues we run into. But also I find that we have a great group of travelers and generally can work things out pretty well.
Yeah. Well, and it really helps us here at the office because you have that clinical background that, some of our recruiters have a healthcare background, some of them don't. And you're here to fill in those gaps.
Right.
Which is, hey, this ICU nurse is clearly not going to go to L&D. Help me out here.
Right, exactly.
Common sense.
Right, exactly. And it, like I said, it can go both ways. Sometimes we see that facilities are having issues with our traveler. Other times we see our travelers are having issues with the facility. And the great thing about it is, like I said, being able to work together with our account managers, our recruiters, kind of take a whole, all the disciplines here and mix everything together and come up with a solution. Sometimes we're able to keep people on, sometimes we're not, but regardless, we try to make the best out of for the situation, for everyone. We try to come up with the best result.
Yeah, lots of problem solving, so when a traveler would talk to you, if they have something they want to talk about,
right,
not with their recruiter, something clinically related,
right,
like, hey, I have a question about this or this treatment that we're doing.
Right.
That's when they're going to deal with you.
Correct. Our travelers won't really talk to me for scheduling issues or attendance issues or things like that. A lot of pre-start stuff I don't get involved with, but after they're on assignment and there's issues, anything, so for the nurses, that's defined by the Nurse Practice Act, how you run yourselves, how you conduct yourselves every day, that's where I come in.
That makes perfect sense. So you actually were a traveler in your history, so not just a nurse, but you have traveled.
Yeah, correct.
What was your favorite part about being a traveler?
My favorite part about being a traveler, there are two things. Number one was actually the travel experience. I am from Ohio, and I traveled out west, mostly Colorado, Wyoming area. And it's gorgeous country out there. It's absolutely gorgeous. I got to do so much exploring. It's so beautiful. So that was an experience in and of itself. And I was young. I didn't have any kids yet. I didn't have a husband. So I really just got to do what I wanted to do. As far as professionally, what I didn't realize until later is that traveling made me really flexible. Like I learned how every single facility does something a little different. And I was able to take all those experiences, build them together, and ultimately it made me a much stronger nurse in the end.
Well, and now in your role now, you advise people,
Right.
hey, you need to be a little bit flexible to be in this job. You know, you have the skills,
Right.
but you have to be a little patient.
Right. And that's a big thing, especially for first-time travelers or people that are relatively new to traveling, is that you come from a place where you're used to doing things one way and you go to a place where they don't do it quite the same way. It doesn't necessarily mean it's wrong, but you have to be flexible. You have to kind of roll with the punches. And that's such an important characteristic in a traveler, is just being flexible, being able to roll with the punches, really being able to adjust to that facility. Now, obviously, if there were anything unsafe, then we have to address that as well. But for the most part, just being flexible and having a good time, learning lots of new things, you can gain so much by just doing that when you're a traveler.
So that was the positives. What were some of the harder things about it?
For me, well, it is learning. I mean, kind of tailing off that too. It is hard to learn a different way of doing things. It really is. When you are used to doing it a certain way and it's what you know and it's what you're comfortable with, that's how you want to do them. So it can be hard to change those habits, change those practices. For me, the hardest part, though, when I was a traveler was really the loneliness. Again, I was from Ohio, very close to my family. I didn't travel with anyone. I was going out there by myself. And so dealing with those holidays, dealing with sometimes those weekends or that big time off alone, that was really hard. And my best advice on that, too, is find some support out there. Really, what I started doing, being young and in my 20s and stuff like that, I joined a hiking group out in Colorado. At the time, I joined a running club. Yep. And it's not like, I still keep in contact with some of those people today, but it really helped. It's not that they understood about me being a nurse, but I could go with them on my day off and go do normal things, like start adjusting to the life out there.
Yeah, we've been doing this series on our website called the Traveler Spotlight, where we feature a traveler every week, a little bit about them, their story, and we've had tons of tips about that.
Yeah.
The loneliness factor, and then what to do about it, like how to feel more comfortable. And honestly, I think the internet's helped a lot.
Yeah.
There's so many forums or like ways to meet up with people and do stuff, exactly like a hiking group or a running group.
Yep. Yeah, it's so important, because when you have that loneliness, it just compounds everything. It could be there's a small issue at work, or you're not really used to doing things their way, and then you have that homesickness and it just compounds it. And suddenly everything seems out of control. When you can kind of integrate yourself and normalize yourself to that area, to that experience, you'll feel a lot better.
Yeah, it makes it not quite so scary.
Exactly.
So while they're on the road, what are some things any traveler can do to keep their skills sharp?
So the biggest thing I would recommend is being involved with your certification, getting your certification, so whatever you are. So if you're an L&D nurse, they have certifications for that. For critical care, there's your CCRN and your CCRNK. There's Med-Surg certifications. And basically that makes you do a certain number of continuing education hours. It makes you be involved in evidence-based practice, really stay up on what's going on in your section of nursing. Obviously, if you can take any classes or you can volunteer, one of the things I used to love, especially when I had left the floor about 5 years ago, I volunteer, and I like to volunteer at church or with health fairs or things like that, even little things like that, just to keep your skill set up, just to keep your hands on. And plus then that volunteering factor kind of leads into the loneliness too, that you can help alleviate that some ways. So I really stay involved in your organizations, volunteer if you can, always push yourself to do more, take classes, get more certifications. And you can do that, obviously you can do those wherever you are.
Well, and those are all good things, too, when you're being submitted for a position. You want those things top and center on your resume, because that's going to make you look really good. You're involved and up to date on everything that's going on.
Yep, absolutely.
So this is a question we always ask everybody.
Sure.
What great advice would you give to a first-time traveler?
I think the biggest thing is communication. And communication with your agency, with your manager, with your family, with whomever you need to. I say your agency because we can't help something if we don't know something's wrong. Even if it's that homesickness, talking to your recruiter about that. Is there something we can do to get you hooked up with other people in that area? Do we have other travelers? Communicating with your compliance team so we make sure that goes okay. If you're having an issue, obviously communicating with someone like me. And then as far as your nurse managers, the other nurses, they don't know you. So by communicating, kind of being open, letting them get to know you, they're going to get a better idea of who you are and how you work. And ultimately that'll lead to them being more comfortable with you. And then as far as like communication, friends and family, alleviate that homesickness, alleviate that, sometimes even that guilt or that, problem with being away from home and being away from what you know.
That's awesome. Super helpful. What's been your favorite travel story? Yours? It could be someone else's.
Okay, so my favorite travel story, and I think I told some of you guys about this here, is my favorite travel story was I was working one Christmas, and I had a guy who was I think a long haul like trucker, and he was used to being up at night and he slept during the day. So he was up with me all night. I used to work night shift, and he watched A Christmas Story all night long. And so whenever I was in his room, I watched a section of The Christmas Story with him, even if it was just like 10-15 minutes. Over the course of the night, we ended up watching the whole movie together, really from start to finish in these little chunks. But he was just so appreciative that, he had somebody in there to do that. And it was just a lot of fun. It just made it a fun experience. And he was very, very sweet and very thankful for that. As far as one of my favorite traveler stories from here, I had a new nurse that when I first started with Trustaff a little bit over a year ago, I counseled her because she was having this homesickness. She was having a lot of problems being on her assignment. It was her first assignment. And she just called me recently, and she's still traveling with us. She loves it. She's zigzagging the country now. And our whole talk was give yourself some time. Give yourself some time to adjust to this. Integrate yourself wherever you are. You're going to learn a lot. You're going to do so well. Because she did. She had such great potential, and she loves it now. She's going across the country everywhere. And I love stories like that. She's so happy.
That's awesome. That's what we want to hear. Because, it can be daunting at first, especially if you don't know what's out there.
Yep, absolutely. And like I tell all new travel nurses, they need to give themselves at least a good year of traveling to adjust to that lifestyle, to learning how to negotiate contracts, to learning how to be mobile and move from place to place. It's like any specialty in nursing. You need to learn how to do it.
Or you forget your favorite things at home.
Yes, or that too. Exactly.
Well, thanks everybody for joining us. Katie, I think that's all we have.
Thank you.
If you have questions, extra things you thought of, you want to know more about how clinical liaisons work, what Katie does, how she can help you, make sure you leave those in the comments because we have a couple days left of her takeover, so there's still time for us to get you some answers. So thanks everybody for joining us.
Thanks everybody.